When I say this vintage fabric haul is epic, it's epic. Hello my lovelies, welcome to my little cottage by the sea, the place where I like to stitch and craft my way to a vintage inspired and sustainable lifestyle. In today's video I want to share an epic vintage haul that I have collected and I'm very excited about, and also some of the possible sewing plans that I may or may not use them for. One of the things about living in a small community as I do here in the old town in East Sussex, merry old England, is that everybody knows your business, and because business is vintage inspired sewing and all things relating to that, people tend to get in touch with me if they have some vintage fabric they're not wanting, and they give me first dibs for it, which is incredibly kind. One of my lovely evening students has been a bit of a sort out, and she has all of her mum's fabrics and patterns and so on from particularly the 1940s and 50s, or late 40s, 50s, going into the 60s. And she very kindly let me have a little look through the fabrics and gifted them to me. So I was very, very over the moon. I did offer her money, but she refused. And then she's also lent me a few patterns. She said she's got boxes of them from her mum, but I've just borrowed those to give back because I feel a little bit special for me to keep. I've also been thrifting and found some sewing notions in local shops. There's quite a lot here, so we'd better stack it. I may need leverage to some that gave me. It's a very old, actually, label on it, like beautiful flower blue people blue. From the colour palette, fairly narrow. It's like a of the fabrics that most clothes used to be made in. It's viscose and it's a satin back crepe. Wherever it's from, a dupe from 1940s. So I am thinking I'm going to make some kind of 1940s kind of peplum or like detail. Specific plan. If you know a pattern, let me know. Next up is this really beautiful cotton with this different shades of blue, flowers on there, really lovely quality. I'm assuming that this is late 50s, early 60s. There's a fair amount here, and I am thinking I'm going to make probably one of my sweetie blouses, which was a Patreon project last year, and I really love that blouse. So I'm thinking that I'm going to make this with this, and then I have, bear with me because there's a huge pile, a towering inferno of fabrics, and then there was all this lovely blue tweed. There's quite a lot of this, so I was thinking a circle skirt with this, which I'm in the process of PDFing for my shop, and the sweetie blouse. But then I was sort of thinking it would be nice to make maybe more of a pencil skirt or my Dita skirt. Not sure how it would turn out in this wool, because I'd also really love like a little peplum jacket to go with, although I'm not entirely sure whether I'd wear a peplum jacket. I am in need of jackets, so the fact that I don't wear them is because I just don't have them. So I'm kind of thinking something along those lines. But yeah, blue, I'm liking it for spring, and a change is as good as a rest, as my old nana used to say. Another little piece of fabric, there's not a huge amount here, not really enough to make a garment particularly, but I am thinking project bags for knitting, because I'm really loving the project bags that I have already made, and there's probably going to be enough for maybe some kind of corseted belt. I am currently just putting together a whole thing about project lingerie, my main project for this year, and waspies and corset belts and things are are part of that. So there's two sort of possible ideas for that one, but it's ever so pretty. Next up is this fabulous woven cotton. It's got this sort of raised sort of crosshatch texture. There's loads of this, meters and meters of it. So definitely has to be some kind of dress for spring, early summer, and not entirely sure what that would be, but I'm kind of thinking a short sleeve dolman with maybe a full skirt, and if there is enough left over, then maybe another sweetie blouse. I'd also really like to make covered buttons, so it would be a button front maybe with a belt with a covered buckle. So I'm on the lookout for those little kits. If you can point me in the right way, my lovelies, I'd be most grateful. I was really drawn to this small sort of remnant of upholstery fabric. It's a sample, I think, from some kind of shop or catalogue, but it's very, very pretty, and I really love those embroidered little evening bags that you got in the late 20s and 30s, and I'm thinking that I might make something like that. It already looks really embroidered, so most of the work's done for you. I just need to look for the sort of those metal clasps and the chains, and I will fashion something out of that because it's just so, so sweet. Going back to my sort of familiar territory are these two different satins. This one is a very vintagey one. It's a rayon satin. It's got that lovely ruffled sound to it, and probably would be for a lining, or you know, lining skirts and so on. I don't know what I'm going to do with this. There's a couple of meters, or about 1.5 meters, so not a huge amount. I don't know whether I'd do a lining or whether I would do some kind of top. I do actually have this, so this is one of the patterns that my lovely student has lent me, and it's this one, so a very early 1950s, late 40s, obviously not my size. It's called Over Blouse with a Flared Peplum. There are 10 pieces for this, and I just thought actually that would be really, really beautiful worn with a like a black full circle skirt. I'm going to photocopy the packaging and the pattern and then use my own self-drafted bodice block, which I take my Patreon students through how to do. There's a whole PDF and videos and everything over there. I'll link everything below that I can, so I can just replicate, because we've got the like little line drawings, if it's ever going to focus. There we are. And yeah, I should be able to come up with something. I just think that's really, really beautiful and would look lovely in that. So that's one idea for that. And then I have this one. Now this is a slightly stretchy one, and I've got a few lingerie, va-va-voom lingerie projects in mind for this one, so keep posted. Very excited about the lingerie project. Also familiar territory, you won't be surprised, black. This one is a black wool, and there's a couple of meters of it, and I'm going to be making this butterick pattern with it. I had earmarked some other fabric, but I'm sewing a sort of a wearable toile for a self-drafted dress in that, and I'm not sure that I really like the quality of it. I want this to be a dress that I wear and wear and wear, and I've got some vintage embroidered trim that I'd like to make this sort of big collar with. So there's that one, and then there's this like just crepe de chine, just a viscose, quite old. You can often tell vintage fabrics just because of the width, so you can see tray narrow, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that. I mean, I immediately want to just replicate this idea, but there is also this really lovely wing tip 1950s, early 50s shirt, which I would very much like to make. I'm thinking that with really beautiful buttons would make a real statement, so that's a possibility. Now this one is really very epic and quite hard to come by these fabrics these days, but it's this watercolour, 1950s, mid-century watercolour twill viscose. It's got the, and there's a lot of this. I have a funny feeling that the label's still on it somewhere, but I'm not entirely sure where. I have no idea what I want to make in this, but there is quite a lot of fabric here, so I want to utilise all the fabric. So some kind of, oh, there's the label, hold on, there's the, oh look. So, oh bless, she would have got it in a little charity shop herself, and there is 192 inches length, I don't do inches, 36-inch width, and it was £4 at the time. So very excited about that. Again, sort of bluey grey, but kind of tying in with this. There's sort of two distinct colour stories, I think, here, but that would be lovely. If you have any suggestions for patterns that you think might be nice, then pop it in the comments below, because I do love to hear your thoughts. I have recently been loving lavender, which I think is the Pantone colour of the year, a particular shade of lavender, I don't know. But my daughter bought me lavender nail varnish, not wearing it today, and I saw these lavender roses and just thought, actually that's a colour I don't often think of wearing, but I really like. So here is another satin back crepe, probably 1940s, I don't entirely know. I mean, it might be later than that, it might be sort of an 80s dupe for it. It is vintage, I'm not sure with these little geometric designs printed onto it, but again, another 1940s dress, maybe some kind of peplum dress. I don't know if it's one that I've already self-drafted or I'll just find a new one that I want to make, but I think this is really beautiful, and I'm really trying to think in terms of outfits. So if I've already got something, what I can make to go with that, or when I'm planning new makes like this, what I could make to go with it, what I already enjoy wearing. Have I got anything like that already? I do feel like this needs definitely some long gloves and some kind of head decor, and some seam back tight stocking, something like that, but I'm not entirely sure at the moment, but do love it. So even though it's off-pieced, it has got black in it, so slightly within my comfort zone. The last fabric that I chose was this really pretty 1930s viscose rayon, and it's got this really lovely little pattern on it. It actually looks really modern, but it isn't. There's 3 meters here, and I am going to be making a copy of this Bieber dress that I talked about in my recent Tea with Tara talk over on Patreon. Every month over there on the 13th of the month, I do a talk about fashion, history and culture, just from my perspective and my aesthetic. And this month was all about Bieber, because it's February and it's about things that you love. So I talked about Bieber, and we are going to be making this dress. And then I also, way back in June last year, published a exclusive PDF pattern, the Junebug jacket. And I just thought it would be really lovely to hack that and turn that into a swing coat to wear with this. And this also has shades of sort of blush pink and lavender and blue in it. So somehow inadvertently I've chosen all these fabrics that kind of don't go together, but also sort of do. The last pattern that my lovely student lent me from her mother's beautiful and most treasured collection is this batik, also from the early 50s, I suspect. Quick and easy blouses, choice of necklines, and you've got the little pictures on the back. Are you going to focus? There we go. I probably am not going to copy this one, but I am going to photocopy the cover. It's because I already have sewn a blouse using my own bespoke block from this, but I'm going to photocopy bits of this for the inspiration. I really love the way these vintage dressmaking patterns, sewing patterns were illustrated. They are all so incredibly beautiful. And those of you who spend time with me here in my cottage by the sea know that I do love to doodle, and I have a character that I doodle called Myrtle May, and I use her to put all little clothes on. She's like my paper dolly, and I would like to get better at drawing her. At the moment she's only sort of one pose, and I'm not very confident about my drawing, so I would like to use these to help me develop my drawing skills. I've also been scouring charity shops, and I found a few really interesting things, or interesting to me. I was lucky enough to find this little vintage pack of bias binding. I don't want to use it, but I just love the vintage lady on the front here, and again blue, so going to be able to do some really lovely inspiring sort of visual collages to help inspire what I want to make. And actually her outfit is really rather epic. And then I found a load of zips, and what I really love are these old zips. So these are really old. These will be from the 40s, I imagine, and they are still called lightning fasteners. Zips never used to be called zips, they used to be called lightning fasteners, and it was Schiaparelli who first used zips as a sort of a fashionable thing. Up to then they just were used for army uniforms and quite practical things, but then they became zips. I did a talk about this in January 2022 over on Patreon, so there's loads of goodies there if you want to go and have a look at what's going on. But and then I also found this zip from a bit later, and then these and then these metal zips, which would be early zips. They're just so lovely, these old zips. I'm going to check that they work and give them a bit of a spruce up, clean all of this fabric, and then I'll be using those in my garments. My final thing to show you is actually the thing that I was the most pleased to find in a charity shop, and it is this 1940s, I'm assuming, Vogue pattern, and it's all the bits, all the gubbins, as my granddad used to say, for making all the padding and the foundation pieces for those 1947 new look garments. So there's hip pads and different types of shoulder pad that you use in different garments here. So there's one for a coat and suit, for dresses, for grown on styles, for sweaters, and then these hip pads. And I thought it'd be really interesting to make them up. I haven't looked in to see if all the bits are in there. I am very much hoping that they are. There is the little like the instructions here with all the bits and pieces that you need and materials and so on. So all of that is there, and just as a historical document I think that it's incredible, but I'm very excited about making hip pads. Not really something that I'm gonna have much need of, but just sometimes it's nice to really replicate as much as you can the techniques and garments that we need, because then it gives you a real sense of history. And also I can't afford to buy vintage Dior, so I have to make my own. I hope you've enjoyed having a look at this epic vintage sewing haul with me today. Let me know what your favourite things were and what you would make with them. It's always really lovely to have other people's ideas and thoughts. It sort of inspires a whole new idea, especially as I don't often wear blue. It's not really a colour that I naturally want to wear, but obviously I've gravitated to those blue colours, so do let me know what you think. So I better finish this tea, and I better clean it, spruce, because I have got a lot of making to do, and I can't wait to share all of these things that I may or may not make with you. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're keeping safe and well. I shall see you back here in my little cottage by the sea for lots more sewing adventures. Take care, my lovelies. Bye.